The rain fell hard on the streets of Washington, D.C. as Captain Lisa Bennett walked through the empty military base. 3 months had passed since the war ended. 3 months since humanity defeated the aliens from the planet Zephyr. The world was celebrating their victory, but Lisa felt no joy in her heart. She stopped at the memorial wall where hundreds of names were carved in black stone. Her finger traced one name that hurt more than all the others. Lieutenant Commander Jack Morrison, missing in action. Presumed dead, Jack had been her best friend since they joined the Navy together 15 years ago. He was the smartest person. She knew, when the aliens first attacked Earth 2 years ago, Jack quickly became one of their top war planners. He could think 3 steps ahead of everyone else. He saved thousands of lives with his battle strategies, but now he was gone. Lost. During the final battle over New York City when the alien mothership exploded, Lisa had watched his fighter jet disappear into the bright flash of light. She never saw him again. Lisa walked to her small office in the base. The building was quiet. Most soldiers had gone home to their families. She sat at her desk and opened her laptop. The screen showed dozens of reports about the war's end. Everything seemed normal. Then her computer made a soft beep. She had received a message on an old military radio frequency. Nobody used those channels anymore. Lisa opened the message and her heart stopped. The voice was Jack's voice, clear as day, but that was impossible. Jack was dead. The message was short, but it made her hands shake. Lisa, if you get this message, listen carefully. The war isn't over. They're still here. Don't trust the victory reports. The aliens didn't leave. They're hiding among us. I'm alive, but I can't come back yet. Too dangerous. Keep this secret. I'll contact you again soon. Jack? Lisa played the message 3 more times. It was definitely Jack's voice, but the computer showed the message was sent 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks after Jack was declared missing. 2 weeks after the war ended, she looked at the message details. The signal came from somewhere in the city, but the exact location was scrambled. Someone had used military encryption to hide where it came from. Only a few people knew how to do that. Jack was one of them. Lisa's mind raced. If Jack was alive, why hadn't he come back? Why was he hiding? And what did he mean about the aliens? Still being here, everyone knew the war was over. The alien ships had left Earth. The government said so. The news said so. She grabbed her coat and drove across the city to find Colonel Frank Miller. Frank was in charge of investigating missing soldiers from the war. He was a tough man who didn't believe stories easily. But Lisa needed his help. She found Frank at his office in the Pentagon. He was working late as usual. His desk was covered with files about missing soldiers. Frank looked tired. The war had been hard on everyone. Lisa, what brings you here so late? Frank asked. I need to show you something. It's about Jack Morrison. Lisa played the message on her phone. Frank listened carefully. His face didn't change. When the message ended, he leaned back in his chair. Could be a fake, Frank said. People make fake messages all the time. Maybe someone is playing a cruel joke. This is Jack's voice. I know it better than anyone. And look at the encryption. Only military people can do this. Lisa showed him the technical details. Frank studied the information. He had worked with Jack during the war. He knew Jack was smart enough to send a message like this. But Frank also knew dead soldiers didn't send messages. Even if this is real, what does it mean? The war is over. The aliens are gone. We saw their ships leave. Jack says they're still here, hiding among us. What if he's right? What if we didn't really win? Frank was quiet for a long time. He looked at the files on his desk. Dozens of soldiers were still missing. Most were probably dead. But what if some were alive? What if they had discovered something important? Okay, Frank said finally. I'll reopen Jack's case. But we need more than just a voice message. We need proof. The next morning, Lisa and Frank went to the records office. They pulled out all the files about Jack's last mission. The papers showed that Jack had been flying alone toward the alien mothership when it exploded. His fighter jet had disappeared in the blast. No body was ever found, but as they read deeper, they found something strange. Jack's flight path was different from what other pilots reported. The official report said he was attacking the ship's weapons, but witness reports said he was flying toward the command center. Why would he go there? Frank asked. Maybe he wasn't trying to destroy the ship. Maybe he was trying to get inside it, Lisa said. They found Jack's personal locker in the base. Inside were his clothes, some books, and his personal computer. Frank turned on the computer and found it was locked with a password. Lisa typed in different words that meant something to Jack: his birthday, his hometown, his favorite football team. Nothing worked. And then she tried something else. She typed truth, and the computer opened. The screen showed dozens of files. Jack had been researching something in the weeks before his disappearance. The files had names like alien behavior patterns and suspicious personnel reports. One file caught Lisa's attention. It was called They Look Like Us. Inside were photos of people in military uniforms. Some faces were circled in red. There were notes next to each photo. Too much knowledge of classified info appeared suddenly. During the war, no background check records. Frank looked at the photos. These are all high-ranking officers. Some of them are in charge of important bases. Jack thought some of our own people were working with the aliens, Lisa said. They found another file called Infiltration Theory. Jack had written many pages about how the aliens might have placed spies among human soldiers. He believed some aliens could change their appearance to look like humans. The idea seemed crazy, but Jack had collected evidence. He had noticed that some officers knew things they shouldn't know. They had information about secret plans that were never shared with their departments. They made decisions that helped the aliens during battles, and they all appeared in the military records around the same time. Just before the war started, Lisa found Jack's personal journal. The last entry was dated 3 days before his disappearance. It read, "I think I know who they are. Going to confront General Stone tomorrow. If something happens to me, Lisa will know what to do. The truth must come out." Frank looked up General Stone in the military database. Richard Stone was a high-ranking officer who had helped plan the final attack on the alien mothership. He was considered a war hero. But according to Jack's notes, Stone had access to information that should have been impossible for him to know. Jack went to see Stone before his final mission, Lisa said. What if Stone is one of them? One of what? Alien spies? Lisa, this sounds impossible. 3 months ago, aliens attacking Earth sounded impossible too, but it happened. Frank couldn't argue with that. The war had taught everyone that impossible things could become real very quickly. They spent the rest of the day reading Jack's research. The more they read, the more worried they became. Jack had found patterns that suggested the aliens had been preparing for invasion for years. They had placed agents in key positions. They had studied human weaknesses. The visible war might have been just the beginning. As evening came, Lisa and Frank sat in the quiet office. The files were spread across the desk like pieces of a puzzle. Jack's voice message played softly in the background. If Jack is right, then we didn't really win. The war, Frank said. We just won the first battle. Lisa looked at Jack's photo on his military ID card. His eyes seemed to be staring right at her. She could almost hear him saying the words from his message again. The war isn't over. They're still here. Outside, the city lights twinkled in the darkness. People were going home to their families, believing they were safe. But somewhere in those lights, Jack Morrison was hiding. And somewhere else, alien enemies might be hiding too. The real war was just beginning. The next morning, Lisa and Frank decided to visit Dr. Amanda Price. She was a scientist who had studied alien technology during the war. Her lab was located in a secure building outside the city. If anyone could help them understand Jack's theories about alien infiltrators, it would be Amanda. Dr. Price was a small woman with sharp eyes and gray hair. She had spent months examining captured alien weapons and equipment. Her office was filled with strange devices and computer screens showing alien symbols. Jack Morrison came to see me 2 weeks before he disappeared, Amanda said when they showed her the files. He was asking very specific questions about alien biology. He wanted to know if they could change their appearance. Frank leaned forward. What did you tell him? I told him the truth. We found evidence that some aliens have advanced shape-shifting abilities. They can alter their cellular structure to mimic other life forms, but the government classified that information. They didn't want people to panic. Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. So Jack was right, the aliens can look like humans. Amanda nodded. Not all of them. It seems to be a rare ability. But the ones who can do it are almost perfect copies. They can change their DNA, their fingerprints, even their memories to some extent. Without special equipment, they would be impossible to detect. She led them to a locked room in the back of her lab. Inside were alien artifacts that hadn't been shown to the public. Strange machines with smooth surfaces and pulsing lights. Amanda picked up a small device that looked like a scanner. This is how we discovered their shape-shifting ability. This scanner can detect the energy patterns that all Zephyrians give off. Even when they're disguised as humans, they can't hide this. Energy signature. Frank examined the device. How many of these scanners exist? Only 3. The government ordered me to stop making them. They said the war was over and we didn't need them anymore. Lisa and Frank exchanged glances. If the government had stopped production of the only device that could detect alien infiltrators, it raised troubling questions. Dr. Price, Jack mentioned. Someone named Kevin Davis in his files. Do you know him? Lisa asked. Amanda's face grew sad. Sergeant Davis worked with military intelligence. He was helping me catalog alien technology. He died in a car accident 3 days after Jack disappeared. Very tragic. We need to see his work, Frank said. Amanda led them to another room where Davis had been working. His desk was neat and organized. File folders were labeled with dates and locations. But when they opened the folders, most were empty. Someone cleaned out his files, Amanda said. It happened right after his funeral. Official orders from High Command. Lisa found one folder that still had papers inside. It was labeled Supply Chain Irregularities. The papers showed that certain military bases had been receiving supplies they never ordered. Food, equipment, and medical supplies were being delivered to locations that didn't request them. This is strange, Frank said, studying the reports. Why would bases get supplies they didn't order? Maybe the supplies weren't for human soldiers, Lisa suggested. Maybe they were for aliens hiding on those bases. They found another document that made their blood run cold. It was a communication intercept from 3 weeks ago. The message was in code, but Davis had partially decoded it. The words second phase and position secured were clearly visible. Jack was right, Lisa whispered. The war isn't over. They're planning something else. Amanda looked at the decoded message. Kevin showed me this before he died. He said he was tracking suspicious communications from various military installations. He thought someone was coordinating activities across multiple bases. Frank studied the list of bases mentioned in the intercepts. These are all strategic. Locations: command centers, communication hubs, weapons storage facilities. If someone wanted to control the military, these would be the places to target. They spent the afternoon going through Davis's remaining files. They found evidence of unusual personnel transfers, unexplained security clearances, and officers who had been promoted unusually quickly during the war. Look at this, Lisa said, holding up a personnel file. This officer was promoted from lieutenant to colonel in just 6 months. That's impossible under normal circumstances. Amanda examined the file. I remember this man. He visited my lab several times during the war. He was always asking about our research into alien weaknesses. I thought he was just being thorough. What if he was reporting back to the aliens? Frank asked. They found similar patterns in dozens of files. Officers who had appeared suddenly in important positions. People who had access to classified information but no clear reason for having it. Soldiers who made decisions that seemed to help the aliens during battles. As evening approached, they realized they needed to contact more people who might have information. Lisa remembered that Jack had mentioned working with other soldiers. who shared his suspicions. "We need to find Jack's network," Lisa said. "He couldn't have been working alone." Amanda suggested they visit the Veterans Hospital. Many soldiers who had been injured during the war were still recovering there. Some of them might have information about unusual activities they witnessed. At the hospital, they spoke with Captain Tom Bradley, who had been wounded in the final battle. He was recovering from injuries he received when his base was attacked just before the war ended. "It was strange," Tom said from his hospital bed. "The attack came right after we received new orders from command. Orders that didn't make sense. We were told to move all our best weapons to a storage facility that I'd never heard of." "Who gave those orders?" Frank asked. "General Stone. He said it was part of the final assault plan. But when the attack came, we had no weapons to defend ourselves. It was like someone had told the aliens exactly where to strike." Lisa and Frank looked at each other. General Stone's name kept appearing in their investigation. Jack had suspected him, and now they were finding more evidence. They spoke with other patients at the hospital. Many told similar stories. Strange orders that left them vulnerable. Information that seemed to have been leaked to the enemy. Officers who knew things they shouldn't know. One soldier, Corporal Mike Johnson, told them about a secret meeting he had accidentally witnessed. He was delivering supplies to a base when he saw several higher-ranking officers meeting in a locked room. They were speaking in hushed tones about maintaining cover and preparing for the next phase. "I thought it was just normal military planning," Mike said, "but now that I think about it, it was odd. They stopped talking when they saw me, and one of them looked different. I can't explain it, but something about his eyes seemed wrong." By the time they left the hospital, Lisa and Frank had spoken with 12 soldiers. 8 of them reported unusual activities or suspicious behavior from their commanding officers. The pattern was becoming clear. That night they returned to Frank's office to organize their findings. They had testimonies from soldiers, evidence from Davis's research, and Amanda's scientific analysis, but they still didn't have proof that would convince others. "We need to find Jack," Lisa said. "He's the only one who might have direct evidence." Frank was about to respond when his computer chimed with an incoming message. It was on the same encrypted frequency that Jack had used before. They opened it immediately. "Frank and Lisa, I know you're investigating. Good. Meet me tomorrow at the old warehouse on 5th Street at midnight. Come alone. Trust no one else. They're watching. Kevin Davis didn't die in an accident. They killed him because he got too close to the truth. The same thing will happen to you if you're not careful. The infiltrators are in positions of power. They're preparing for something big." "Time is running out, Jack." Lisa stared at the message. "He's alive. He's really alive. And he's in danger," Frank added. "If he's right about Davis being murdered, then we're dealing with people who will kill to protect their secret." They looked at each other in the dim light of the office. Tomorrow night they would finally meet Jack and learn the full truth about what had happened during the invasion. But they also knew that once they learned the truth, there would be no going back. They would become targets just like Jack and Davis. Outside, the city slept peacefully. People went about their lives believing the war was over and they were safe. But somewhere in the darkness, enemies were watching and waiting. The real battle for Earth's future was about to begin. The old warehouse on 5th Street stood empty and dark. Lisa and Frank arrived at 11:30, 30 minutes before the meeting time. They wanted to check the area for any signs of danger. The building had been abandoned since the war started. Broken windows stared down at them like empty eyes. They parked their car 2 blocks away and walked through the shadows. The streetlights were dim and flickering. Lisa carried one of Dr. Price's alien detection scanners in her jacket pocket. Frank had his service weapon ready. "Are you sure about this?" Frank whispered as they approached the warehouse. "Jack is our friend. If he says to come alone, we trust him," Lisa replied. They found a side door that was slightly open. Inside, the warehouse was filled with old boxes and machinery covered in dust. Moonlight came through the broken windows, creating strange shadows on the floor. At exactly midnight, they heard footsteps. A figure emerged from behind a stack of boxes. It was Jack Morrison, but he looked different. His hair was longer and he had grown a beard. His clothes were worn and dirty, but his eyes were the same sharp, intelligent eyes, Lisa remembered. "Jack!" Lisa wanted to run to him, but he held up his hand. "Stay back, we need to be careful. This place might be watched." Jack looked around nervously. "I'm glad you got my messages. I wasn't sure the encryption would hold." Frank studied his old friend. "Jack, what happened to you?" "Everyone thinks you're dead. I had to disappear. It was the only way to stay alive and continue the investigation." Jack motioned for them to sit on some old crates. "What I'm about to tell you will sound crazy, but every word is true." Jack began his story. 3 days before his supposed death, he had confronted General Stone about his suspicions. Stone had seemed nervous and had asked too many questions about what Jack knew. That night, Jack realized someone had searched his office and his quarters. "I knew they were onto me. So I prepared for my final mission differently. Instead of attacking the mothership, I planned to get inside it. I wanted to find proof of the infiltration." But the ship exploded," Lisa said. "I made it look like my fighter was destroyed in the blast. But I actually landed inside the ship before it exploded. I found something there that changed everything." Jack pulled out a small device from his pocket. It looked like alien technology, but it had been modified with human components. "This is a communication device I found in the ship's command center. It was still active when I found it. I could hear conversations between the aliens and their agents on Earth. Lisa, Frank, they're not just hiding among us. They're controlling key positions in our government and military." Frank took the device and examined it. "How many of them are there?" "I don't know exactly. But based on the conversations I heard, there are at least 50 infiltrators in important positions. They've been planning this for years. The invasion we saw was just a distraction." Jack explained that the real invasion had been happening slowly for decades. The aliens had been studying human society and placing their agents in key positions. They had learned how humans thought and acted. They had memorized human history and culture. The open war was designed to make us think we were fighting the real enemy. But while we were fighting their ships and soldiers, their real agents were securing power on Earth. Lisa felt sick. "So we never really won the war. We won the battle, but we're losing the war. And most humans don't even know it's still happening." Jack told them about the network of humans who had discovered the truth. Scientists, soldiers, and intelligence officers who had noticed things that didn't make sense. People who had asked too many questions and found answers they didn't want to find. Kevin Davis was one of us. He was tracking supply deliveries to hidden alien bases. He found evidence that the infiltrators were preparing for something big. That's why they killed him. "How do you know for sure he was murdered?" Frank asked. Jack showed them photos on a tablet computer. The pictures showed Davis's car after the accident, but Jack pointed out details that the police had missed. The brake lines had been cut, the steering wheel had been tampered with. There were signs that someone had been in the car before the accident. I took these photos before the police arrived. I was following Kevin that night because he said he had found something important. I saw the whole thing happen. It wasn't an accident." Lisa looked at the photos. The evidence was clear. Someone had definitely sabotaged Davis's car. "We need to go to the police," she said. "The police can't help us. Some of them might be infiltrators, too. We can't trust anyone in official positions until we know who is human and who isn't." Jack led them deeper into the warehouse. In a hidden room, he had set up a makeshift command center. There were computers, radio equipment, and maps covered with red marks. On one wall, he had posted photos of suspected infiltrators. "This is everyone we've identified so far. Government officials, military officers, scientists, even some news reporters. They're in positions where they can control information and make important decisions." Frank studied the wall of photos. He recognized many of the faces. Some were people he had worked with during the war. Some were heroes who had been decorated for their service. "How can you be sure these people are aliens?" Frank asked. Jack showed them a modified version of Dr. Price's scanner. "I've been working With the scientists in our network to improve this device, we can now detect the alien energy signature from up to 50 feet away. I've personally scanned everyone on this wall. Lisa looked at the photos with new understanding. They're everywhere. In Congress, in the Pentagon, in the intelligence agencies. If this is true, they could control everything. They're not quite ready yet. That's why we still have a chance. But they're moving fast. We've intercepted communications about something called the final phase. We think it's going to happen soon. Jack explained that the aliens' plan was to gradually replace human leadership without anyone noticing. They would guide human society in directions that served their interests. Earth would become a colony world, but humans would never realize they had been conquered. They don't want to destroy us, they want to control us. It's more efficient than fighting a war. Frank was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. What do you need from us? We need access to official military databases. I can't get into them from here because they would trace the access back to this location. But you two still have security clearances. We need to find out what the infiltrators are planning. Lisa nodded. What else? We need to contact more people who might join us. But we have to be very careful. If we approach the wrong person, they might report us to the infiltrators. And we need to prepare for the possibility that we'll have to go public with this information. Jack showed them a device that looked like a small radio transmitter. If we can get access to emergency broadcast systems, we can send a message to the entire population. We can tell them the truth about the invasion and warn them about the infiltrators. That would cause panic, Frank sighed. Panic is better than slavery. If people know the truth, they can start fighting back. Right now, they're walking into a trap without knowing it. They spent the next hour planning their next moves. Jack would continue monitoring alien communications from his hidden location. Lisa and Frank would return to their official duties, but would secretly gather information about suspected infiltrators. We need to be very careful, Jack warned. The infiltrators are smart and they're patient. They've been planning this for decades. One mistake could get us all killed. As they prepared to leave, Jack grabbed Lisa's arm. There's something else. I've been having dreams. Strange dreams about the alien homeworld. I think being inside their ship did something to me. Sometimes I can almost understand their thoughts. Lisa looked concerned. Are you okay? I'm fine. But I think I might have been exposed to some kind of alien technology. It's actually helping me understand how they think. That's how I've been able to stay ahead of them. They left the warehouse separately. Lisa and Frank walked back to their car in silence. The weight of what they had learned was overwhelming. The war that everyone thought was over was actually just beginning, and humanity was losing without even knowing it. As they drove home, Lisa looked at the sleeping city around them. In a few hours, people would wake up and go to work. They would read newspapers and watch TV shows. They would live their lives, believing they were free. But somewhere in the darkness, alien enemies were watching and planning. The real battle for Earth had begun. And Jack Morrison was humanity's best hope for survival. 2 weeks after meeting Jack at the warehouse, Lisa and Frank had gathered more evidence than they ever imagined possible. Working carefully during their regular duties, they had accessed military databases and found disturbing patterns. Supply, shipments to secret locations, personnel transfers that made no sense, communication logs that had been mysteriously deleted. But the most shocking discovery came when Frank used Dr. Price's scanner during a high-level military meeting. The device beeped softly in his pocket when General Stone walked into the room. Frank's blood ran cold. Jack had been right. Stone was one of them. They met Jack again at a different location, an abandoned subway tunnel beneath the city. Jack had moved his equipment there after detecting surveillance near the warehouse. The tunnel was dark and damp, but it was safe from prying eyes. We've confirmed 12 infiltrators in the Pentagon alone, Lisa reported. Including Stone. They're in positions where they can control troop movements, weapons shipments, and intelligence reports. Jack nodded grimly. It's worse than we thought. I've been monitoring their communications. They're planning something. They call the transition. It's going to happen in 3 days. Frank leaned forward. What kind of transition? From what I can understand, they're going to simultaneously take control of all major government functions. Military command, emergency services, communication networks. Once they control those systems, they can declare martial law and explain it as a response to a new threat. Jack showed them intercepts from alien communications. The messages were partially coded, but the meaning was clear. On the designated day, infiltrators in key positions would activate emergency protocols. They would claim that remnants of the alien fleet were returning to attack Earth. But there are no alien ships coming back, are there? Lisa asked. No, it's completely fake. But the fear will make people accept military control of the government. And once the infiltrators are in complete control, there will be no way to stop them. Jack had spent days studying the alien plan. It was brilliant in its simplicity. By creating a false crisis, they could justify taking emergency powers. Most humans would welcome the protection. They would never realize they were being conquered. We have to stop them, Frank said. We can't stop them through normal channels. Too many infiltrators are in command positions? If we try to warn our superiors, they'll either be aliens themselves or they'll report to someone who is. Jack led them deeper into the tunnel system. In a hidden chamber, they found something that took their breath away. 20 other people were working at computers and radio equipment. Scientists, soldiers, intelligence officers, and even some civilians. All of them had discovered the truth about the infiltration. Welcome to the real resistance, Jack said. Lisa recognized some of the faces. Dr. Helen Carter, a physicist who had worked on alien technology. Major Chris Walker, a decorated war veteran. Sergeant Paul Newman, a communications expert. These were smart, capable people who had risked everything to fight for humanity's freedom. Dr. Carter approached them with a tablet computer. We've been tracking energy signatures across the country. The aliens have hidden bases in at least 30 locations. They're not just infiltrating our government. They're building infrastructure for a permanent occupation. She showed them satellite images of seemingly normal buildings that were giving off alien energy readings. Warehouses, office buildings, even some military facilities had been converted into alien operations centers. How many aliens are we talking about? Frank asked. Major Walker answered. Our best estimate is around 500 infiltrators and maybe 2,000 aliens total. They'd been bringing small groups to Earth for years, hiding them in these secret bases. The numbers were overwhelming. Even if every person in the resistance fought, they would be outnumbered 10-1. But Jack had a plan that didn't rely on fighting. We don't need to defeat them in battle. We need to expose them to the world. Once people know the truth, the aliens won't be able to maintain their deception, Jack explained his strategy. They would simultaneously broadcast the truth through multiple channels: television, radio, internet, and emergency alert systems. They had been preparing the broadcast for weeks, gathering evidence and testimony from witnesses. The problem is access, Sergeant Newman said. We need to get into broadcast facilities that are heavily guarded. And we need to do it at exactly the same time so they can't stop us before the message gets out. Dr. Carter had a solution. We've been working on a device that can override broadcast systems remotely. It uses modified alien technology to break through their security systems. She showed them a briefcase-sized device covered with strange symbols and pulsing lights. It was a combination of human engineering and alien science created by the Resistance's scientists working together. This device can take control of any electronic communication system within a 50-mile radius. We can broadcast our message through every TV, radio, and computer in the region. But there was a problem. The device would only work once before. The aliens found a way to block it. They would have one chance to tell the world the truth. We need to time this perfectly, Jack said. If we broadcast too early, they'll accelerate their timeline and take control before people can react. If we wait too long, they'll complete their transition and it will be too late. Lisa studied the timeline they had created. You said they're planning the transition in 3 days. When should we make our broadcast? Tomorrow night. the day before their plan goes into effect. That gives people time to react, but not enough time for the aliens to completely change their strategy. The resistance spent the rest of the night finalizing their preparations. They divided into teams, each responsible for a different part of the plan. Some would monitor alien communications to watch for changes in their timeline. Others would gather final evidence to include in the broadcast. A few would scout the location where they planned to use the broadcast device. Jack pulled Lisa aside as the meeting was ending. "There's something I need to tell you. Something I haven't told." The others, "What is it?" "Remember I mentioned having strange dreams after being inside the alien ship? It's more than dreams now. I can sometimes hear their thoughts when I'm near them. I think their technology did something to my brain." Lisa looked concerned. "Is it dangerous?" "I don't think so. Actually, it's been helpful. That's how I've been able to understand their communications so well, but it's also shown me something troubling. The aliens aren't just conquerors, they're refugees." Jack explained what he had learned from the mental connection. The alien homeworld was dying. Their sun was becoming unstable and their planet would be uninhabitable within a generation. They had searched the galaxy for a new home and found Earth. They tried to negotiate with human governments 50 years ago. But the meetings were kept secret and nothing came of them. The governments were afraid of how people would react to the existence of aliens. So they decided to take Earth by force? Not exactly. They decided to take it by deception. They thought if they could gradually replace human leadership, they could guide our species to accept them. They believed it would be less violent than an open war. Lisa was quiet for a moment. "Does that change anything? Does it make what they're doing right?" "No, deception is still wrong, even if their motives aren't entirely evil. But it does mean there might be a way to end this without destroying either species." The next evening, the resistance gathered at their chosen location, the roof of a tall building in the center of the city. Dr. Carter set up the broadcast device while others kept watch for any signs. They had been discovered. Jack stood at the edge of the roof, looking out over the city lights. In a few hours, everyone down there would know the truth about the invasion. Their lives would change forever. There would be fear and confusion, but there would also be hope. "Are you ready?" Lisa asked, joining him at the edge. "As ready as anyone can be to change the world," Jack replied. Frank checked his watch. 5 minutes until broadcast time. The resistance members took their positions. Dr. Carter powered up the alien device. Lights began pulsing across its surface as it connected to communication systems throughout the city. "This is it," Jack said. "After tonight, there's no going back. Humanity will know they're not alone in the universe, and they'll know they're in a fight for their freedom." The device hummed with energy. In 5 minutes, the truth about Jack Morrison's disappearance would finally be revealed to the world. The broadcast device hummed louder as Dr. Carter made final adjustments. Every television, radio, and computer screen in the city would soon carry their message. Jack stood before a camera that Sergeant Newman had set up. In his hands he held the evidence that would change everything. "Broadcasting in 30 seconds, Dr. Carter announced. Jack looked directly into the camera. Behind him, the city lights sparkled in the darkness. Most people down there were watching TV, reading news, or going about their evening routines. They had no idea their world was about to change forever. 10 seconds, Newman counted down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, we're live? Jack began speaking in a calm, clear voice. "My name is Lieutenant Commander Jack Morrison. 3 months ago, the world was told I died during the final battle against the alien invaders. That was a lie. I am alive, and I have discovered a truth that every human being needs to know." Across the city, people stopped what they were doing. The emergency broadcast signal had interrupted every channel. Jack's face appeared on millions of screens. "The war against the Zephyrian aliens is not over. We did not win. The invasion we fought was a distraction while the real enemy infiltrated our government, our military, and our society. They are still here, hiding among us, preparing to complete their conquest of Earth." Jack held up the alien communication device. This is technology I recovered from inside the alien mothership. For 3 months, I have been listening to communications between alien infiltrators and their hidden bases. What I learned will shock you. He showed photos of the suspected infiltrators, including General Stone and dozens of other high-ranking officials. These people are not human. They are aliens who have used advanced technology to assume human appearance. They have been planning Earth's conquest for decades. The broadcast continued for 20 minutes. Jack presented evidence of the secret bases, the false supply shipments, and the murder of Kevin Davis. He showed testimonies from soldiers who had witnessed suspicious activities. He played recorded alien communications that had been translated into English. Tomorrow, these infiltrators plan to activate what they call the final phase. They will create a false emergency and use it to take complete control of our government. Once they succeed, humanity will become a slave species without even knowing it. Lisa watched the city below as Jack spoke. She could see lights turning on in windows as people woke their neighbors. Car alarms were going off as people rushed outside to discuss what they were hearing. The truth was spreading like wildfire. But there is hope, Jack continued. These aliens are not evil conquerors. They are refugees whose homeworld is dying. They came to Earth seeking a new home, but they chose deception instead of honesty. There is still time to find a peaceful solution, but only if we act together. Jack looked directly into the camera with intensity. I call on every human being to demand the truth from your leaders. Use the scanners that Dr. Amanda Price developed to test anyone in a position of power. Do not let fear control you. Stand up for your freedom and your future. As the broadcast ended, the resistance members quickly packed their equipment. They knew the aliens would try to track the signal and find them. But it was too late to stop the message. The truth was out. Within minutes, their radio equipment began picking up panicked communications from alien infiltrators. The messages were in their own language, but Jack could understand them through his mental connection. They're in chaos, he reported. The infiltrators are getting emergency orders to accelerate their timeline. They're going to try to take control tonight instead of waiting until tomorrow. Frank grabbed his radio and tried to contact military bases around the country. Most of the communication channels were jammed or controlled by infiltrators. But a few loyal officers responded, confirming that emergency protocols were being activated at multiple locations. It's starting, Lisa said. They're making their move. Across the city, people were pouring into the streets. Some were panicking, but many were organizing. Citizens were demanding that their leaders submit to alien detection scans. Military personnel were questioning their commanding officers. The carefully planned infiltration was falling apart, but the aliens were not giving up without a fight. Reports came in of alien technology being activated at the hidden bases. Strange energy weapons were being deployed against human resistance groups. The secret war was becoming an open conflict. Jack gathered the resistance members on the rooftop. We need to get to the main alien command center. It's located beneath the Pentagon. If we can capture their leadership, we might be able to end this without a full war. Dr. Carter looked worried. The Pentagon will be heavily defended. How do we get inside? I still have my military clearance, and I know the building better than most people. If we move fast, we can reach the alien base before they expect us. The resistance split into 2 groups. Hoff would stay in the city to coordinate with civilian groups and help maintain order. The other half would go with Jack to assault the alien command center. As they prepared to leave, Jack received a mental message from the alien leader. The communication was clear and urgent. The alien wanted to meet with him directly. They want to negotiate, Jack told his team. Their leader is asking for a face-to-face meeting. It could be a trap, Frank warned. Maybe, but it could also be our chance to end this peacefully. They drove through the chaotic streets toward the Pentagon. Military vehicles were moving in all directions. Some were under alien control, others were loyal to humanity. It was becoming impossible to tell friend from enemy. At the Pentagon, they found the building in lockdown. Security forces were everywhere, but Jack's clearance still worked. They made their way through familiar corridors toward the lower levels where the alien base was hidden. The deeper they went, the more the building changed. Human architecture gave way to alien design. Smooth walls pulsed with organic light. The air hummed with alien technology. Finally, they reached a large chamber at the bottom of the building. Inside, they found the alien command center. Dozens of creatures worked at stations that looked like living coral. In the center of the room stood a tall figure that looked human but radiated alien energy. Jack Morrison, the figure said. I am Commander Zeth, leader of the Zephyrian expedition. To Earth, I have been waiting to meet you. Jack stepped forward, his hand resting on his weapon. Your infiltration has failed. The world knows the truth now. Yes, your broadcast was quite effective. I underestimated human determination. Zeth's voice was calm despite the chaos above. But the situation is not hopeless for either of our species. Zeth explained that the original plan had been flawed from the beginning. Many Zephyrians had opposed the deception strategy, preferring honest negotiations with humanity. The infiltration had been the choice of a radical faction that believed humans would never accept aliens peacefully. My people are dying, Jack Morrison. Our sun grows unstable. Our children will have no future unless we find a new home. Earth is the only planet we have found that can support our life. Jack listened to the alien's words, feeling the genuine desperation behind them. Through his mental connection, he could sense that Zeth was telling the truth. Deception was wrong, Jack said. But that doesn't mean we can't find another way. What do you propose? Jack looked back at his human companions, then at the aliens in the command center. Honesty, real negotiations. Humans and Zephyrians working together to find a solution. That works for both species. Over the next hour, they worked out the framework for a new approach. The Zephyrian infiltrators would reveal themselves and submit to human authority. In exchange, humanity would agree to open negotiations about sharing Earth or finding alternative solutions to the Zephyrian refugee crisis. It would not be easy. There would be fear and anger on both sides. Some humans would demand that all aliens leave Earth immediately. Some Zephyrians would prefer to continue fighting rather than trust human mercy. But for the first time since the crisis began, there was hope for peace. As dawn broke over the city, Jack Morrison stood before the cameras. Once again. This time, he was joined by Commander Zeth and leaders from both species. Today marks the beginning of a new chapter for both humanity and the Zephyrian people, Jack announced. We choose cooperation over conquest, truth over deception, and hope over fear. The road ahead would be difficult. Building trust between two species would take time. But Jack had given both humans and aliens something precious, a chance for a future together. The truth about Jack Morrison's disappearance had led to the truth about everything else. And that truth, difficult as it was, had set both species free.